Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here. I want to thank Nils, Sir Toyjet, the Hoffmanator, and others. I know I'm forgetting people. Support over on Patreon. It is so much appreciated. I really do thank you guys for doing it. But everybody else, what I really hope I can earn from you is to hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. Or if you're new, whether on watching live now, there's a few people watching live now over on Twitch and Facebook. You can follow over there or subscribe on YouTube. So I really appreciate all of you just doing that. And it also really helps if you can post a comment. Just say hi. That's all you got to do. I'll say hi back. Their vast empire. Oh, wait, yes. I mean, the Dutch, I understand why they need a yes, you can have why they need a navy, because they do actually have a bunch of islands out around the world. So they I understand. But the Belgians in this scenario, whoever's programming the national AI, which maybe there isn't one and is just a generic, and since it has a port, it wants a navy. I don't know. Zinc, who? No, thank you. Navy asks for more money. Okay, sure. Shipyards in San Diego now. I don't know. Wagner, a laissez-faire capitalist. It's keeping our resources down, I know, but I think we'll continue with that. Cruiser fire control computer. Nice. Down there, okay. Read out. Yeah, we can do some anti-air movements. The U.S. at this time, most nations underestimated the needs of anti-air protection for gunnery on ships. The U.S. particularly did, but other nations as well. Oh, that's building up what we need, including money. Super vertical protection. Yep, needs to stop that, and bulkhead layouts advance. That also needs to stop, right? Okay. We'll do some of the ammunitions a bit later, but we can get some of these AA guns improved. Okay, Brady, thank you so much. Have a good time. Thanks for hanging out. I think, yes. Unlock better bomber prototypes. I am curious to see as how effective our bomber program can be. I'm going part of what I'm going to do here is be Curtis LeMay and see about bombing everybody into the Stone Ages that are fighting against us. Normally, when I play as Germany, I don't want to do that. Because outside of Britain, in my opinion, most of the time, I want to capture their ICs and their resources generally intact, with, plunging in, whether it's into the Soviet Union or France or wherever else. So I really don't want to do damage to the countries I'm going to take, because I'm relying upon them to, continue to support expansion. Britain is a different case, but also it's different in that they get special bonuses over their own country for air defense. So it's not necessarily counterproductive, but it becomes expensive, and I really don't think it I don't think it helps enough for the expense for Germany to try to bomb it too much. I'd rather just, instead of going for bigger bombers, put more into subs and try to sink their convoys instead. Okay, heavy artillery brigades have advanced. That is lovely. That is grayed out. Okay. Do aviation. No, I don't think so. Let's aerial mines. That's cool. We like aerial mines. Okay. Fighter pilot ground crew training. And light bomber prototypes. Those will probably be grayed out. Okay, good. But that unlocks these, so we will start researching these. Hey Ragger, are you still there? Been thinking about what you said, watching the EU destroy itself. Not exactly sure, and you don't need to explain in more detail, but a while ago, I saw a British sort of ad, shall we say, for helping refugees out. And they sort of had an ad with a white woman and her little daughter. And it's sort of like set maybe in Britain, but there's a war and we're being bombed, and and there's bombing, and there are people at checkpoints and all this other stuff going on, and all this tragedy going around them, and this mother's escaping it and going to this other country. And what it was an ad. I don't know how long ago it was made, not more than 2 or 3 years ago, but made sometime not this year. And it was for, people, basically Syrian refugees. Now we know most quote unquote Syrian refugees that have come into Europe are overwhelmingly, let's be generous, 80% men of military age. So they're not the old folks, they're not grandma and grandpa, they're not the kids, they're not the women, they're the soldiers, or the potential soldiers that have fled, if they're even from Syria. And we need to help these people. How would you feel, like this? Well, now Europe is freaking getting a flood of these white refugees coming out. And how are they going to support them? Because they're already supporting refugees from everywhere else in the freaking world. How are they going to support local refugees? So I really think, God, it's a tragedy, and Herr Thomas is around here sometime, and he lives in Ukraine. I know a little more graphic detail on that, but I don't want to go into it. He lives in Ukraine, so I talk to, about weekly or so, talk to somebody from the Ukraine. So I really feel for all the Ukrainians there. Screwed up energy. Energy policy. Oh God, yeah. Didn't block out. Oh God, yeah. Especially Germany energy policy. Oh, that's really bad. Their long-term policy basically creates something like the Soviet Politburo. Yeah, Yeah, that too. A bureaucratic government more than an elected government. Yep, that you're right on that, Ragar. And so, I talk to people in the Ukraine and I feel for them, but I really, again, this is a tragedy, and I don't want to make it out anything less than a tragedy, and I'm not for it. But it has been I think, a much needed wake up call to Europe and to America, but to Europe and to places maybe like Taiwan and others, that the world ain't a peaceful place. And there's barbarians, whatever types of and again, I'm glad I'm sort of glad that it's Russia, so that people aren't, oh, you're an Isterophobe when you call them barbarians, because they're picturing, I'm thinking, a black skinned person or just a dark skinned person, or no, barbarians can be in any skin color, any hair color, it doesn't matter. Barbarians, so you have barbarians out there, and barbarians aren't necessarily technologically lower than you. Some of the critical technologies the Mongolians used, and the Huns before them used stirrups on horses that the Romans and the Greeks did not use. So sometimes they had better technologies. That there's barbarians out there, and the world ain't a peaceful place. And it's a wake-up call that, yes, there are Europeans that are being affected by a war, and Europe is dealing with them, whether it's refugees or not. Now, it's curious that, to the best of my understanding, and I'm sure it's a long border, so I'm sure it's somewhat porous, but to the best of my understanding is the Ukrainians are maintaining border security with Western Europe, meaning they have border guards on there, and they're not allowing military-aged men out of the country. Women, children, old folks. Yeah, you want to go west? Fine, go west. But young man, you stay in the east. They're not allowing their young men to flee. Now, I don't know how effective that is. Whether they're keeping most in Ukraine. So I'm sure if you're determined, you can get the hell out at some point. But it's interesting that they're doing that, which is different than what we're seeing in other parts of it. Okay. 1939, New England hurricane on September 9th, 1939. A region of New England in the United States suffered a dreadful hurricane with 600 to 800 fatalities were estimated, and $306 million worth of damage was done. Okay. Yeah, billions. Okay, so, oh, hell. Okay, infrastructure. New London, naval base, Providence, Bedford. Okay, so infrastructure. We do have naval base, so let's rebuild the naval base. Rebuild some infrastructure. I mean, maybe not necessary, but we'll do it. Definitely want to get that naval base rebuilt. Radios have advanced. Very nice. And it unlocks more, so we'll do airplane radio improvement. But I really hope people have learned from Ukraine going on. I hope they learn. That's the whole. Yeah, the whole point. Well, the whole point. Part of me making my original mod for Hearts of Iron was just to be sort of fun, but a lot of it was to educate people on what was going on back then, particularly Nazi Germany, and the dangers of all of that. And so that whether it's, people who hate Jews or people who hate left-handed people or people who hate whoever it is, whether they look different or think different or behave different, have different views, to learn to see what a different type of Nazi, not people, again, who hate Jews, but who want to go down some totalitarian or even just authoritarian paths, that you learn from it and recognize it and, learn the lessons of history. I know I'm only reaching, even with my mod, just a few people. No, thank you. Here for that. Just a few people with it, and even fewer here on YouTube, really. But I think they're incredibly important lessons to be learned. And I'm trying to teach them in a fun, entertaining way. That people will want to watch just because they want to watch, and then they get the lesson too. Australia, okay, there's a reasons for Australia to have a destroyer. They're out at sea. Yeah, I'm an anti-EU. I'm a pro-NATO. I'm a pro-joint securities viewpoint. I believe all NATO members, which also include, not just Europe, but they also include the, why didn't you pause? The Monroe effect, that is over here, I believe. Okay. It includes Canada and the U.S. We're North Atlantic Treaty, we're North Atlantic nations. I'm a big fan of NATO and my government's involvement in NATO. I want that to continue. I'm a big fan of all of that, but I am not a fan of the EU because I live in the United States. That doesn't mean I don't like the people in the EU, is because I know what's going to happen to your countries, even if you take good policies, as in the sense of blocking immigration, making better decisions on energy, and what was the other one he mentioned? Setting up a bureaucratic state. Well, we have a bureaucratic centralized state here in the United States, and it's a problem. I think what they're setting up in the EU is even less responsible to the citizens than what the U.S. has, and the U.S. has a bad enough situation as it is. So, yeah. But even if they weren't making bad decisions in my eyes, I don't think they understand how centralized government decisions and how centralized culture is going to become, and how much their national identities will be eroded by this eventually. Hello, Seamus Finnegan, how you doing? So any plans or ambitions for this game to accomplish, possibly in comparison? Oh, certainly. I'll talk about it in just a second. Now, if it was up to me, we would be out of the EU tomorrow. Too bad we have some weak SOB. Yes, I understand, Arno, and I agree. Okay, yes. What we're going to try to do is, obviously, we know the standard playbook of how to win World War II is the U.S.A. because they've done it. You're absolutely right there, Finnegan. I don't know how different Europe is going to be. I'm going to do a historical, wait for America to be bombed by Japan to enter the war kind of thing. So I'm going to wait for that to happen. But getting closer to the time, we're going to put even more resources than the U.S. did, because I know when it's going to happen, obviously, to some degree. But by mid 41, I want more forces in the Philippines, as well as, out in Guam and Wake Island and Midway and Hawaii, to better garrison out some of these areas from Japanese attack. So hopefully to withstand the attacks there. So I'm planning on doing that. Planning on being a bit, Curtis LeMay, and trying to bomb the hell out of Germany and Japan. So we're going to do, with that, we're going to, do a nice naval war. Don't know how much we'll get involved in on the continent, but definitely see about pushing into Japan. And I don't know if I'm going to do something like, I just may, a naval invasion of Norway or something to liberate that before, a D-Day here, but alongside, if we can build enough landing craft and whatever, do sort of pushing in through, the Mediterranean here, but maybe taking, pushing and taking out here. I don't know. We're going to look at it. It's not anything set in stone. Yes, you're right. The longer it takes, the more painful it will be. Most said politicians, but I really mean people. Are people learning? Do people learn? Do I learn? I don't know, because I have to look at Marie Le Pen. Okay, let me say this: I don't hate her. Now, that doesn't mean I like her. I'm not saying, oh, I like her. No, I don't know enough about her. I don't like her father. Her father, don't like him. And I remember the days back when, what is it? Forget Le Pen's first name, not Marie, but the father's first name right offhand. Just blanking on it. Very anti-Semitic, very unpleasant politician. Now, we have the Rands here, Ron Paul and Rand Paul. Yeah, the Pauls, I should say, not the Rands. The Pauls here. Ron Paul and Rand Paul. Ron Paul is the father. He's a hardcore libertarian kind of guy. Hardcore. Rand Paul, the way he actually is in the Senate, he's not his father, okay? I don't think he believes what his father believes. But he's generally on the same side of issue, but his father was more extreme. I really think so. And I don't think he's just pretending to not be as extreme, because I still sort of think he would get elected in Kentucky. He's very popular there. Is it Kentucky or Tennessee? I forget. Doesn't matter. He's very popular there. If he went a little more hardcore on his positions, I still think he'd get elected. He's not his father. He's more mild than his father, but he's generally, in worldview, Ron Paul wanted to pull all U.S. troops out of NATO, all U.S. troops out of like Korea, not just out of the desert countries, but just get all the U.S. troops home everywhere. And he was an extremist that way. Rand Paul doesn't seem to be that at all. Hey, yeah, have a base in Germany. Have let's protect South Korea. He's not an extremist. So I don't know what Marie Le Pen, because they keep making it, keep painting her with the same brush as her father. I don't know if she is or not, but I don't hate her. Okay. Now, I'm not saying I like her or want her in power, but I don't hate her. But she is but a symptom of Macron's governance in France. And this is why we're focusing over France. And whether it's the woke agenda of greenness, raising gas prices, fuel prices to try to push people to green energy solutions, or which is sort of, the yellow vest movement that caused so many freaking riots. Now, part of the riot stuff is just France, okay? Part of it, I think it's France wants to riot over things. So I think it's part of that is just a cultural temperament. Um, but part of it is true dissatisfaction with the government. And then we see a lot of people's frustration over COVID policies. And we're not talking about when COVID was the dark days for 6 months that it was really terrible and grandma died and all this stuff. But it's still effing going on in a lot of these countries. And we have to get back to normal. We can't forever that there's some grandma somewhere or some sickly child somewhere. We have to shut the effing world down. We can't. And I have health issues. I'm personally concerned about this. Don't think that Gamer doesn't care. Gamer cares. But we have to get things going back to normal. Whatever, it's not the new normal of, oh, we've got to mask up and we've got to social distance and we can't. No, that isn't the new normal. The new normal is we now have COVID as well as the flu. Okay, we just have another disease that people get sick of, and hopefully very few people die of. But we have it, and just live with it and go on with our lives. Just get over this. But governments don't seem to want to get over this. I don't understand entirely why they don't, but it's causing a lot of dissatisfaction. So the reason Marine Le Pen gets so many votes is because of what Sarkozy is doing, not because they like her or they think she has the answers. It's just the other thing isn't working. We got to try something else, everybody, and going more left wing, because Macron isn't, my understanding, terribly left wing. He, compared to some of the more hardcore stuff, more left wing than most American politicians. Well, maybe not. More left wing than some American politicians, but it's government, extremism on the right or the left happens because centrist, and centrist I mean by center left and center right, what had been in America, Democrats and Republicans. Well, the Republicans are right wing. Well, no, they're not right wing. They're on the right, but they're not the far right. We're talking, fascist type movements, extremist movements, which the Republicans aren't. They're just not. You don't have to like them, but they're not an extremist movement. Trust me. I've met enough of the elected officials. They ain't extreme. God no. And so when the center right and the center left kind of things don't function well enough, that's when the radical left and the radical right start gaining traction. And with Marine Le Pen getting as close as she did in that runoff, should be a wake-up call to every European government, but definitely to Macron. But I don't know if they've learned. I don't know. Do they learn? Are they learning? And would I learn? And what's Finnegan saying? I think the EU can be saved if it's decentralized more and broken up into smaller trade political blocks, i.e., Latin Union 3C. Okay. Well, so long as you have a union, remember, union and united have the same functional meaning. So the United States and the European Union are ultimately the same thing. They are a unified government, a centralized government, people. You have not set up the Confederation or even a Federation of Europe. See, if it was the Federation of Europe or the Confederation of Europe, you would have the idea of a much more federal system or a confederal system, which allows a lot more local control, a decentralized place. But so long as you keep the term union, that's the European project, is unified Europe, unified, United States of Europe. So what I'm saying is, everyone who sees there, they want a United States of Europe that is the same set of laws for every single person in it. No variation between laws in Spain and in Norway, or laws between Greece and Ireland. The same set of laws everywhere. And And a bureaucrat can for 4 years work in France and then go for 4 years work in Sweden and then for 4 years go work out in Greece, and he'll just speak whatever the European language would be. I don't know, English, and he'll be the bureaucrat, and it won't matter that he grew up in France or he grew up wherever, and it'll just be ping-ponging around, and that's who's going to be governing the situation as long as you have it. Now, I know you're making a Latin idea, and yes, there would be cultural similarities between various Latin countries. If they wanted to create a bloc like that, that would make more sense. It's not a terrible idea, but even then, I don't know that it's... I don't even know. I mean, what good does it do? I mean, literally, what good does it do to create, let's just say, a 4-country thing? France, Portugal, Spain, and Italy. As one country, get rid of all these borders. I mean, they'd all be painted with the same color. So they would use the same money. They would have one official language for documents and laws, whatever language that would be. Now, they may print up, because like if I go into the Department of Motor Vehicles here to take a driver's license test, I can probably get it in somewhere between 4 and 12 languages. It's printed in the test. So I could take it in Chinese, or I could take it in Spanish, or I could take it in whatever. I can take it in, but there's only one set of, when you actually pass a law or you sign a contract in the state of California, it is always in English. It is never in another language. And so it's whatever, someone might add a translation, but the legality of the contract is what it says in English, not what it says in a translation. So it's everything is officially printed and done in one language. So, but again, like you may have road signs, or a translation of the law into different languages, but it will be one language that will be the governing language for contracts in this thing. What good? I'm not saying there's zero good, but what good does that really do you to do? And so I don't think that would be, using that as an example of a type of political bloc, failed attempt to make Latin bloc called the Latin Union, does not need to keep the name, is going to be more of location. Sorry. Okay, well, yeah. Better when the EU stops the political part and returns to the roots and becomes just an organization to protect Europe. Yeah, see, going back to the common market, yeah, that works. You're a trade bloc to some degree, but handle problems between sovereign countries, yes, that would work. United Latin country, I don't think would be possible, by the way, because of political affiliations, and joining trade unions would be more beneficial. United Latin country, I don't think would be possible, but loose political affiliation. But you see, that's what you're Finnegan, you're already going, and I don't know if by the name, if that's Irish or not, but you're going in that direction already. The EU is going to go for a nation. The nations are going to be like states in America eventually, and it's all going to be Irish. Yes, cool. And so it's all going to be the same. That's what the EU's goal is. It's going to all have one language. It's all going to be one set of driving rules. Everything's going to be the same. That's where you're going. That's where you're heading. And I know this from studying history, because I look at the United States and there has been a continual centralizing of power in Washington, D.C. And so there's going to be a continuous move, whether it's slow or fast, or goes slow then fast and slow and fast over the years. There's going to be continued centralizing of power in the EU. And that's what's going to happen. It's not going to be a loose organization of states. you know, so, you know, it's just, I know, I try to explain this to people, European people, and they don't seem to believe me. And when I, you know, because I've lived in Britain, less than 6 months, but I've lived in Britain. Before it was a member of the EU, I think. Yeah, before it was a member of the EU. You know, way back when. And I've traveled there multiple times. But it's not that I'm an expert on EU politics. Just I understand history and I understand the way these things work. And they always move towards centralization unless there are very hard, firm roadblocks to it, and there just isn't. Nations tend to centralize power outside of extreme circumstances, such as a great collapse or other situations, to cause any decentral. Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying is the EU is a nation-building project. That's what it is. It is a nation-building project of the European Union. High-density alloys, very nice. That is here, and it is grayed out. All right. And so that, okay, we do armor-piercing list, armor-piercing cat. We'll switch over to that. Oh, wait a minute. Oh. Okay, we're going to, in a little bit, I think, get a chance to bump up our research, so we'll just keep this going. And so, yeah, that's what's happening with and I think more and more people are going to reject it. Prime mover liability. I think we'll just stop some of these now. Small arms, definitely want to stop that. Ground crew training. Come back to some others when we get more. Lack of true roadblocks, its extensive size and nature, bureaucratic model you have mentioned, but I think these are smaller blocks. Yeah, you know, like I say, it makes more sense to me, but I don't necessarily get what the benefit is out of it. May end up working better, like Benelux trade union once existed. Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking about, yeah. You know, there's reason, you know, does Greece want to have a different currency so that it's cheap for Europeans to come down, for tourists come down and vacation in Greece, and have different economic policies so that it's cheap for Europeans to visit, and they can make stuff, if their currency is weaker, they can make stuff cheaper and sell it to other Europeans. You see, that's the kind of thing I think you're benefiting at. What I think, if you keep NATO, see, one of the reasons for creating a block of nations is mutual protection. But if you keep NATO strong, I just don't see the need as big. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. It's a less bad idea than the European Union. And there may be more benefits that I'm just not thinking of. Trade is the main benefits. Easier to leverage trade as multiplayer nations than one, but grow too big. Yeah, okay, see, now, trade, good, yes, to an extent. But what the problem comes is, and I heard a lot of people talk about this over the Brexit debate, is policies that may hurt industries in particular nations. And, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, we'll trade with Australia. Export of copper, very good. That would get us a bunch more. And that, there we go. Okay, we got to 11. Let's get to 13,000. So I just wonder about a certain level of protectionism of certain industries in certain countries. I don't know. Pause. Unpause. None of the nations involved, but you go with Latin example, have similar tourist economies, agriculture economy. Yes, and this is partially why I'm thinking that it partially because, like you say, it's the economies, partially it's the culture. They similar cultures. They want to be inefficient. Latin cultures want to be inefficient. If you look at efficiencies in businesses between Italy and Germany, you'll see Germany is much more efficiency oriented in businesses. Latin countries want to be more inefficient, and it's a cultural thing. So they would get along. The Latin countries would get along better. Because I think like the Dutch and the Germans have a much more industrious, want to output of activities than the Latin countries. So yeah, some of those, and I don't know enough about Polish or like Slovak culture to know how industrious they are. But yeah, it does make a little more sense. Okay, capital ship, medium, anti-aircraft artillery advance. Okay, we're going to stop that for the moment. And we're going to end this episode, not the live stream. Don't go anywhere, everyone who's live, but I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. Really do appreciate it. See you next time for, yes, more, even more Hearts of Iron. Okay, 1 year and the war breaks out. Well, no. It's only September 39. War won't start until 1942. Well, 41, late 41. So we're going to be at peace. We're at peace. The war doesn't start until Pearl Harbor's attacked. That's just Europeans just, playing fun games with each other until America gets in it. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab a Coke, guys. Just hang loose for a moment. It ain't a war until the U.S. is in it. Then it gets to be a war. Is Japan guaranteed to attack? If it does not, you have a plan. If they don't, I believe it is scripted that they attack. And again, I believe that is scripted. I know it normally is, give or take a month. So it's not necessarily going to happen in December, but Japan will do it. But we're playing as America. So what do we care about the rest of the world? We're America. Just one big, but we end the war. We get the war over with. So yeah, because I played a bunch as Germany and Italy and other nations, and there is a Pearl Harbor scripted attack. I presume it will happen to the U.S. and we will wait for it. If we Because sometimes I think it may have trying to remember because I've done and things change a little bit over various versions, so they may have changed something, but I don't think so. Um, in this version of the game, sometimes it may happen in November or maybe as late as January 42, but around that time, around give or take a month or so, um, the Pearl Harbor thing will happen. And sometimes it just may be when we're starting and stopping the game that affects it a bit. Any plans to do anything about fascist nations in South America like Venezuela? No. Are they fascist? Relations. I don't know that they're fascist. To the best of my knowledge, there are no fascist nations in Latin America during World War II. I don't know of any. I the Novo State Party in Brazil is fascist, but I don't think they ever come to power. Now, there's authoritarian governments, for sure. Dictatorships. Oh yeah, there's dictatorships. Not sure exactly which countries where, but being as fascist, I don't know of any. Okay, when U.S.A. everyone, yeah. Well, Venezuela? No, I don't think they were fascist. Let's see. Info guaranteed relations. War goals are not at war. Where do I look to see their government? I mean, don't bother with this. Well, that would be under intelligence. I should remember that it's under intelligence. Venezuela. Okay, they are currently this gray party here, the COPI that would be a authoritarian. That'd be the fascist. That'd be the National Socialist. So I don't know that anybody we would. There's no fascists here. There's authoritarian and then there's social conservative types. See, fascism is an ideology that really doesn't take hold in Latin America. I'm trying to think of a fascist country. Now, if you are a person who believes Soviet type propaganda, America is a fascist country. Everybody who is not a left-wing socialist country is a fascist country. Every military dictatorship is a fascist dictatorship. But to me, fascism is a specific ideology, and I don't know of a single fascist country in Latin America. And I'm not saying there is none, but I just don't know of any. I did take Latin American studies when I was in college, so political science. So I'm have some basis of doing that, of knowing what's going on. I didn't say it was fascist, but more closely aligned to more loosely fascist groups like. Well, okay, Finnegan, I don't know, and again, Finnegan, let me understand you. Was Franco a fascist? Franco, the ruler, was Spain a fascist country at this time, or during World War II? That's what I would like to know. Oh, shoot.